Hi, I'm Jamar Hebert. Happy MLK Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I'm here at the village of Gainesville, here to speak with our seniors on the impact of Dr. King.
Activist, a philanthropist, and brought a couple of his books today as well. If you're interested in that, I'm going to get me one. But I am so thrilled to have Jamar here to talk to us about Dr. King and his dream and what it means moving forward here. So please take a second to welcome Jamar Heber.
Okay. Thank you so much. Village of Gainesville, or Village at Gainesville, it's my great honor to be with all of you today to mark Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s Day. Today I want to talk about how his legacy continues to echo in our lives today, including my own. Let me just briefly introduce myself. You know, I've been very fortunate. I've been blessed to live all of my professional dreams as a leader at a top telecommunications company, and even gotten to influence our organization for the better as regional chair for diversity and inclusion for the Southeast region. I've been given the freedom to pursue opportunities as an entrepreneur, a writer, and consultant, as Josh mentioned. I've gotten very great satisfaction in working with my community as chair of the 100 Black Men of America Gainesville chapter, helping to connect successful leaders in our community with young men to serve as mentors. I'm grateful for this work because I know what a difference mentors have made in my own life. One person who paved the way for me was, of course, my mother. She too encountered opposition, even from teachers who tried to force her to lower her sights and ambitions. This was at the very height of the civil rights movement, and she stood out plenty because she was just a part of the second class to integrate the school. So she really stuck out plenty to her peers, if you could imagine. There were many times she was the only girl in the room, enduring taunting and spitting just for the crime of trying to get an education. Among other things, she was called a locust, coming from people who, of course, took the book of Exodus a little too seriously. This was really a nasty insult, if you could imagine, for a child. But she didn't listen. She became the first in our family to earn a college degree, who went on to a long career as an educator for special needs children. She raised my brother and I to be resilient and ready for life's challenges. When we were growing up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we were a generation removed from the civil rights movement. And if there still weren't a lot of people who looked like us in positions of leadership and influence, we didn't have nearly as many forces actively rooting against us as past generations. Still, it wasn't always a walk in the park, especially for my brother when he attended a virtually all-white Catholic school and learned to navigate the feeling of being the only Black in the room. A feeling that many African Americans have learned to grapple with as they make their way in the world. Being the only can create some painful moments when you're in the room, especially with the wrong person. Like when my brother went on to college and a teacher simply couldn't believe that he had the writing talent to turn in a stellar paper. It didn't matter that his favorite subject was, of course, you guessed it, English. His professor simply couldn't fathom that his work would be up to that quality. The teacher accused him of basically buying his paper. Now, of course, this wasn't at the University of Florida. I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so you can just about guess which university that was. The dean assured him that he would look into changing and have it stricken from his records, the paper, or the charge, that is. But guess what? That didn't happen. It surfaced some 7 years later when he was taking the bar exam. It's easy to see how a few thoughtless actions on the part of others can dramatically throw someone off the course of pursuing their dreams at no fault of their own. I still think of him as my brother, of course, but he has also gone on to achieve a great deal in the legal profession, rising to serve under the Attorney General, Louisiana State Attorney General, and then going on to overseeing the state's gaming division. My mother had seen firsthand the transformative impact that education could have on a life's trajectory and saw to it that we ourselves to a high standard. She instilled in us a drive to succeed and to dream big. I've worked hard myself to achieve a successful career in the world of business, primarily focusing on telecommunications. In time, I would branch out to start my own business, focused on simply helping small businesses not only survive, but to thrive. I remember the hard, long nights it took to advance and the sacrifices I made to live out a career that I'm very passionate about. That journey led me to write 2 books, one about the power of following your dreams, and the other about the experience that all too many Black men especially experience of being the only in the room. Although the title of the book is The Only Black Man in the Room, it's really for anyone who finds themselves as the only other in the room. But I can only speak from my experience, right? But many can relate to this. And for me, Martin Luther King's story and legacy is at the intersection of these topics. He showed the power of following a dream and how doing so could open doors of opportunity for more of us to be in the room and at the table. I remember something my mother told me last year on the holiday. She said 4 simple words that have struck with me ever since the day on the eve of his holiday. And that was, he was God sent. Think about it. What man do you know gave his life, besides, of course, to Jesus Christ? It's not too many people that I know who would sacrifice so much just so that you and I could live a better life. Now, of course, we've had many of men to live and sacrifice their lives all over the world, but not too many to have such an impact and to inspire the way that Dr. King did. That's why streets bear his name in communities across the country, from Montgomery to Chicago. It's why his monument stands on the National Mall in Washington. Think about it, a private citizen immortalized alongside presidents and generals in our American pantheon of all-time heroes. He reminds us of all we are capable of achieving, even without a uniform or a lofty position. He never held elected office. He never even saw his 40th birthday, though his biographer said that he died with the heart of a 60-year-old, the legacy of the stress of the civil rights movement. And yet, in his short time, he really became one of our founding fathers. He was a human being, a man of flaws, of course, a man who bled under the force of a Montgomery policeman's bully club, a man who felt the cold of the floor of the prison cell, a man of relative privilege. King made a conscious choice to speak out, to sacrifice in pursuit of a just cause. The night before he died, Dr. King delivered one of his most popular deliveries and mentioned not reaching it to the mountaintop. As he said, "I may not get there with you." Could it have been a message from God? This is why I say God sent. I can go on, but I firmly believe there is enough evidence to conclude that this man was really God sent. You know, when I think about Dr. King's dream, and if I had to sum it up, I would conclude that his message was deeply rooted in accountability. Dr. King only wanted America to enforce its promise to people of color and to women of all shades, to be endowed with the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And he was one of only few men daring and simply bold enough to put it all on the line to see that it was done. He was not just a thinker, but he was a doer. To take this a step further, the dream is about not giving up no matter what color, age, or gender you are. It's about encouraging others to not give up on their dreams. It's not too many people who has been able to inspire a nation and rally it to fully live up to its values. And yet too many of our young people going to schools named for Dr. King haven't fully been taught what it really stood for. It's so important that they know what he stood for. Our children have no memory of separate but equal, no memory of a black water fountain. Jim Crow is something in history books. This is a blessing. This is the legacy of what Dr. King did for our country. But it is crucial that we ensure that our children do not think that this progress was inevitable. It is crucial that they realize the struggle, the blood, the tears that went into making this reality possible. It is crucial because only with an understanding of our history, of how our journey has progressed, can we attempt to make sense of where we are today. They may hear his famous quote about being judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin, but they don't hear his more challenging critiques of materialism and of structural racism. Some younger Americans may know that Dr. King had a dream of racial equality, but they may not know that the famous march in August of 1963 was a march for jobs and equality. King's compassion was truly universal. He died marching in solidarity with striking sanitation workers. His message is just as relevant today. Yet we too often see messages of removing this history from our books. Look at the war ongoing against diversity and inclusion. Look at the war against teaching civil rights in our history books, especially right here in Florida. Simply put, African American history is an essential component of our nation's history and should be taught in every classroom. Banning the teaching of this history sends a message that it is not valued, it's not important, and that the experiences and contributions of African Americans are not worth learning about. How do we keep Dr. King's dream alive? Well, let me tell you, I think it begins with connecting with one another face to face, getting out from behind the screens and the social media tools, Facebook and Instagram. Yes, they give us more ways to connect, but all too often, they really allow us the illusion of connecting. It's easy to post and feel like you've done something. It's much harder to go out into the world, look someone else in the eyes, and try to make real change in our physical world. In order to keep his legacy, the faith, the dream alive, we, I feel, adhere to 5 principles. And trust me, I'm no expert here, so bear with me with my 5 principles. I'll try to be as brief as possible. First, we must acknowledge the Almighty, for the dreamer was guided by his directions. Secondly, we must focus our time, energy, and attention on mentoring. I can say without a doubt that mentoring is what made the difference in my life and made my story possible. If you want to tackle virtually any problem in society, I think it's almost always comes back to mentoring. Look at the drug situation, for example, and how they are destroying our communities. We must teach our children that it's popular to do what? To just say no. But that doesn't add up to much unless you have a trusted relationship with the child. When you mentor, you demonstrate that you aren't just popping up once. You're there for the long haul. You're there for them to call and lean on for guidance when they're facing life's tough situations. I always tell people when I give them our pitch to join our organization, the 100 Black Men, remember to bring others along on your journey. It's not enough to succeed without lifting up others. Find the most professionally rewarding aspects of your career to be the opportunities to mentor others and give them insight from your own experiences. About 35% of the programs at 100 Black Men are focused on mentoring. And they are such a powerful way for our young men, in particular, to have a committed, involved model of success as an active presence in their lives. Going back to the 100 Black Men motto, what they see is what they'll be. Third, we must stop the killing. Too many of our young people find their validation in violence. Everyone born has a special place destined to make their dreams become a reality, to become a part of history, not a statistic. President Clinton gave a stirring speech in Memphis, the city where Dr. King died, in 1993, the first year of his presidency, that is sadly all too relevant today. As he said, if Martin Luther King were to reappear by my side today and give us a report card on the last 25 years, what would he say? You did a good job, he would say, voting for and electing people who formerly were not electable because of the color of their skin. He would say, you have more political power, and that is good. You did a good job, he would say, letting people who have the ability to do so live wherever they want to live, go wherever they want to go in this great country. He would say, you did a good job elevating people of color up the ranks of the U.S. Armed Forces to the very top and into the top levels of the U.S. government. You did a good job, he would say, creating a black middle class of people who are really doing well. You did a good job opening up opportunity. But he would also say, I did not live and die to see the American family destroyed. I did not live and die to see 13-year-old boys get automatic weapons and gun down 9-year-olds just for the kick of it. I did not live and die to see people destroy their own lives with drugs and build drug fortunes, destroying the lives of others. That is not what I came here to do. Fourth, we must educate our children. They are our future leaders. They will become a part of Dr. King's dream. They will become our future doctors, lawyers, judges, educators, mayors, governors, and astronauts. They are dreamers. But we have a long way to go. It's often been fashionable to say how we're lagging behind the rest of the world in so many aspects, particularly with regard to STEM careers. But the truth is that from what I've read, education is in serious need of reforms all over the world. In part because we're still coming back from a pandemic that hit all over the world. I think we also have technology, social media, and smartphones playing a significant role as well. We have a long way to go to still go from the disruptions of the pandemic when so many of our kids fell behind. A recent study of global learnings standards found that performance in critical areas like math and reading was down sharply from before the pandemic. Test scores even fell by 10 points over the last 3 years, 15 points in mathematics. What can be done? You know, there's no magic bullet, but I come back to the impact of mentoring and making sure kids have an active presence in their lives, taking an interest in their education. Fifth and finally, we must pray. We must teach our children to pray. We have a legacy of belief through former slaves who prayed righteously for change. They prayed because they knew that the prayers of the righteous would prevail. Let us keep the dream alive by uniting for the cause, uniting to keep alive a dream that will continue. Endurance is crucial. We are faced with the hands of time being turned back on a racist clock of time. Let's keep the dream alive by being the solution to a problem, not by contributing to enhance the problem. Let's keep the dream alive by remembering those Americans who fought to bring peace, justice, and equality for all by giving their lives to become a part of the dream. The question, where do we go from here, has been asked numerous times by numerous people, and certainly we've heard numerous answers. Let's start now by becoming a part of the dream that will last as we embark upon a tremendously challenging daily journey. That should be one of hope, faith, and love. Let's stay focused. Let's be diligent. Let's keep the dream alive. On this day, let us not just commemorate, but also rededicate ourselves to the unfinished work of justice, equality, and compassion. My final words will be powerful words from Dr. King. We are now faced with the face that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding quadrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. Dream today, and when faced with difficult challenges, never, ever give up. Thank you.
I've formerly worked at the Alachua County Health Department, so I've worked with a lot of similar problems in teenage pregnancy, and find that he has an excellent outreach program that I think is extremely challenging, worthwhile, and hope it continues with a lot of support. And just appreciate him being here today.
I work with the program. I started a program called The Preserve, and we have 4 young men at a time. We bought the house, no mortgage, and they live with us, and our board of directors are the only ones that supply help for them. It would be wonderful to connect with an organization like this that might be able to offer them and others some help. Thank you.
First of all, I'm just thankful to have a moment to remember Dr. King. And I was glad to have those 5 important things that he said. Remembering the Almighty, to pray, to educate the children, and so forth. I think all those priorities are really important ones to reinforce every day, probably. And I was also glad that I already knew about the Mirrors program, so I've already I just love mentoring, is a really important, one of the few ways it really works. And so I just applause. Really appreciate the opportunity and to know who Jamar Heber is. So, and I've got his books to find more.